When the lives of some are represented as more valued than others, and race is often so central to that representation, I'm afraid that we really can't be surprised when we hear stories of border guards and others turning away Black and brown people who are also trying to escape the war in Ukraine, because representation, of course, really influences whose lives some people view as worth saving.
This is not a developing third world nation. This is Europe.
On parle pas là de Syriens qui fuient.
I see European people with blue eyes and blonde hair being killed.
The pain and the suffering of the Ukrainian people, we all agree, is absolutely horrific. And I think journalists on the whole are doing a really excellent job of showing that horror. But I think what's also horrific is the racialized hierarchy of life that we're seeing in some of the reporting of the war.
And what's compelling is just looking at them, the way they're dressed. These are prosperous, I'm loath to use the expression, these are prosperous middle-class people. These are not obviously refugees trying to get away from areas in the Middle East that are still in a big state of war. These are not people trying to get away from areas in North Africa. They look like any European family that you would live next door to.
Arguably, that kind of tone was set by people like Boris Johnson when he addressed the nation.
And this is not in the infamous phrase, some faraway country of which we know little. We have Ukrainian friends in this country, neighbours, co-workers.
This kind of use of our and not some country and we, just sets up this really kind of divisive tone that then percolates down into the framing of the reporting, including the use of really racialized, deeply problematic terminology like civilized.
This isn't a place, with all due respect, like Iraq or Afghanistan, that has seen conflict raging for decades. This is a relatively civilized, relatively European, I have to choose those words carefully too, city where you wouldn't expect that or hope that it's going to happen.
The racism that demarcates whose lives are more worthy is, of course, not new at all. The philosopher Achille Mbembe, he talks really powerfully about this through the concept of necropolitics, which also means death politics, where he describes the way that lives are positioned in a hierarchy. And how constructed racial categories are used as a technique for distributing power, and in the process demarcates who is more worthy of life and death, so that, as he writes, race is ultimately linked to the politics of death. So the key thing is, what can we do to change? We can recognise that all lives are equal, not just by saying it, but by showing it through our actions. That means challenging problematic framing when we come across it, like thousands of people already are on social media. It means not using phrases, quote unquote, like us to describe people from European nations, when those same phrases are not applied to people fleeing war from non-Western nations, as if they are not people like us. And finally, it means always being cognizant of the simple fact that lives impacted by this crisis are no different to human lives impacted by war anywhere else.